Welcome to Excel Magic Trick number 1403. Hey, if you want to download this Excel file so you can follow along, click on the link below the video. In this video, we got to talk about DAX formulas either for Power BI Desktop or Excel Power Pivot. We got to talk about the difference between explicit and implicit measures. Now, the difference is pretty straightforward. Implicit, that's when we drag and drop a field, not a measure, into the data model pivot table or the Power BI values area. And the data model makes a read-only measure for you. Now, there's much less control when you do this. Here are 6 reasons we shouldn't do this, and we'll run into each one of these when we try it. Explicit measure simply means you create the formula yourself. You choose your own name. Add the number formatting and use it over and over. Now I want to go look at our tables. Here's our tables. We have a fact table with quantity, revenue, and then product key and customer key. Here's our product table, our customer table, and our date table. If I go over to Power Pivot, I've already imported these into the data model. Here's our fact table. I'm going to go over to Diagram View. Here's our fact table. And a one-to-many relationship for product, customer, and date. Now, let's go back over to Data View. We're going to come back and explicitly create our measure here. But I want to go try to create a pivot table and create implicit measures and see if we can find them in the data model and see the trouble with them. I'm going to click this pivot table button. It brings me back to Excel. New worksheet is fine. Click OK. Now, let's start off. I'm going to pull from the product table the products. We have 5 different products, and instantly we get a unique list of products. I'm going to get rid of that row labels, design, report layout, show, and tabular. Now here's how we create an implicit measure. Quantity and revenue are number columns. Over here in the product table, that's a text column. And our product key, that's a number column too. So let's see what happens when I drag revenue. Notice this is a field, not a measure. I don't see that sigma symbol, which means this is a measure. I'm going to drag the number field down to the values area and drop. And just like a normal pivot table, it defaults to sum of revenue. Now, a few things happen here. There actually is a hidden measure back in the data model that was created. It named it. We can't change that name. And it didn't add number formatting. But now let's try to drag a text field. I'm going to drag product, and this is just going to give us a count of 111. We could see the name of the measure count of product. It gave us 111 because it was counting how many aspens are in the product table, right? So there's 1. But notice what it did. That text field defaulted to count. Let's try yet another example. Let's say I wanted to count how many transactions there were for each one of the products. Not the quantity, but the actual number of transactions. So I'm going to drag this product key down here. And it's a number field, so it defaults to sum. Well, now already we have 1, 2, 3 measures somewhere over there in the data model. But what happened here? That's not the correct calculation. We don't want to sum the product key. Bellen would be number 2, so that's probably double what it should be. So no problem. We do like a normal pivot table. Right-click, summarize values by, and watch this. I'm going to change it to count. Now, behind the scenes, it actually created yet another measure. Now, down here, we see these implicit measures. And notice, I don't see them up here. I can't drag and drop if I want to reuse them. But down here, I see 3 of them. But there's still that 1 because I changed the count. There's still that sum sitting over there in the data model. So it created an extra unnecessary formula for us. Now, if I want to add number formatting, well, I can do it with implicit. But I have to right-click number formatting and then add it every time I use the field. So I'm going to add currency, click OK. Now let's say I wanted to create a new pivot table. So I click in a cell, Insert, Pivot Table, or use the keyboard Alt-N-V. Notice it's defaulting to use the data model. That's fine. I'm going to click OK. Let's drag customer down here. And I'm like, hey, I want to use that sum of revenue again. Well, it's not there to reuse, which is a big bummer. one of the main advantages of using explicit. But when I drag revenue down here, it'll work. Actually, and it doesn't create a new measure. We have 1, 2, 3 plus that hidden 1, 4. But I do have to come here and right-click number formatting every single time that I use that field and that implicit measure. All right, so that's a lot of bummers. It will always default to sum on numbers, and sometimes that's not what we want. It'll always default to count for text. We had to manually apply the number formatting. We can't reuse the formula down here, and we had that extra measure. Now, I'm going to double click this down here, call it PT, and enter. Now, I'm going to go over to the data model and check out and see if we can find those implicit measures. Now, we're over here in the fact table, and I don't see the measures in the measured grid. These are where they're supposed to be. If I go over to the product, there's supposed to be 1 here. Well, if we go back to F sales, I just don't know where they are. And, I don't remember reading in any book or blog about where they are. But I knew they were there because this would always happen. I would be creating a measure. I'm going to click in the measure grid and just create a fake one, TTT. I jump over here, colon, equal sign. Now I'm going to type a square bracket, which is the correct syntax for measure. So even though we can't find those hidden implicit measures, they are all there, all 4 of them. And last week, I was hunting through here. I seem to remember that there was a show implicit somewhere. And there it is in advance. When I click show implicit, there they are. Now I'm going to Control X, Control V, Control X, Control V. There they are. And check this out. It's all grayed out. I can't change the name, can't change the calculation. If you hover your cursor here, it says, hey, we created a read-only formula for you. And there's that extra one that we didn't need. And of course, I want to right-click Format or go up to Home and Format. You just can't do it. So implicit measures are mostly just really inconvenient. And if you keep changing the calculations, you might stack up a bunch of extra ones. But now let's see explicit. And all I want to do is add total revenue and count number of transactions for products. So I'm going to type total, and notice that shoots me up to the formula bar. Revenue. I have complete control over the name of it. I type colon and equal sign. In Excel Power Pivot, you have to type a colon and an equal sign. Over in Power BI Desktop, you type just an equal sign. Then I type sum, tab, F to get to my F sales. I'm going to down arrow to quantity, tab, close parentheses, enter. And now, of course, I can go up to Home and add some number formatting. So complete control over the name, and I can do anything. I'm not limited to just some aggregate functions and add some number formatting. Now, the next one, I'm going to count product transactions, colon, equal sign, count rows, tab. And I need a table here, so I'm going to say F, S, and tab. Close parentheses, Control, Enter. I don't think we're ever going to have enough, but just in case, I'm going to add some number formatting, comma, with 0 decimal since that is a count. Now, there's my measures that I created explicitly. I can use them over and over. Alt-Tab. Come over to the side here, Alt-N-V. There it is, the default. Because I have a data model, click OK. Now I'm going to go to Products, drag down here. Now I open up F sales, and there it is, my lovely measures. These are explicit measures. I can see that F of X when I drag total revenue down here. Boom, it works. It has the name I want and the number formatting. I'm going to click down below, Alt-N-V, Enter. Now I'm going to create a new pivot table, Customer. Now I can drag total revenue down, and it works, the number formatting, and a different set of totals given the row labels. Now, let's go over in our count. Watch this. When I drag it down here, I'm counting the entire sales table. So through the relationship, it's able to count each one of the customers. Now I'm going to go over to Design, Report Layout, Show in Tabular. Do the same thing here, Report Layout, Show in Tabular. Now my cursor is in this first pivot table, so now I go over and I'm going to drag Count Product Transactions. And look at that. That works too, but that's the wrong name. It's totally editable. Let's go back because it really should just be count transactions. Remember, we're counting over the F sales table. So whatever condition is filtering the F sales table, whether it's customer or product, it'll get the correct count of transactions. Go back over to the data model, Alt-Tab, come up to the formula bar, and I'm simply going to backspace and enter. Look at that. We have complete control. Alt-Tab, and there we go. All right, that was a lot of fun with, oh, maybe it was not so much fun with implicit, but fun with explicit. If we go over to sheet 1403, implicit DAC measures have a bunch of troubles. Number fields always default to sum, text always to count. You can't add number formatting to the actual formula. You can't reuse it, can't change the name. And of course, if you right-click an implicit measure and you summarize values by, it may be creating extra unnecessary measures. Explicit DAC measures, it just means we create the formula, choose the functions, choose the name, add the number formatting, and use it over and over. 5 awesome reasons to use explicit. All right, that was a lot of fun with DAX. We'll see you next video.